This video will be the ultimate guide, one-stop shop to learn everything you need to, at least on a surface level, when it comes to making manga. Comics, webtoon, essentially at the core, they're all the same, telling a story through sequential art. But in this video, we'll go over the more Japanese-inspired way of doing it. I'm Dunze, the creator of Apple Black, published and serialized on Saturday AM. And through our book deal with Quarto Publishing, we're going to be having a couple of books coming out this summer and then for the following months. During the whole book deal and all the things we had to do to prepare the books for bookstores, translations, all those things, I've picked up a couple gems along the way. Through this book deal, I'll also be publishing some of our other core series like Saigami, Cameras, Oblivion Rouge, Massively Multiplayer World of Ghosts, Titan King, a how to draw book even, and more. There are many ways and many processes on how you actually make manga. You can make it digitally on the computer, or you can go a more traditional route, or mixed media, which is just as it sounds, combining the two. For example, I used to draw my comics traditionally, where I take the leader comic book paper, type A, B4, 134 kg. There are other types, but that was the one I used. Based off of some prior steps, which we will go over in this video, I sketched and inked on the paper, but then scanned it in, and then added screen tones digitally in Clip Studio Paint. Obviously, you can do this in Photoshop, and the list goes on. Really, it's less about the tool and more about the user. There are those who just work completely traditionally, and then they add the screen tones traditionally, where you have to cut it and then place it, it'll stick, you scrape it off, you do all sorts of crazy stuff with it. Obviously, screen tones are something you have to consistently buy, and they do get expensive if you're getting them internationally. And then there are those who work completely digitally, like me now. Because of how I'm set up now, it allows me to be faster so I can put out more content in a shorter amount of time. Not always, but a lot of manga is serialized in some kind of magazine, whether digital or traditional, and then it runs kind of like a TV show on a station. And after enough content is created, you have the manga volume. The same way you have a season 1 DVD. And usually those magazines have very grueling schedules for the manga artists. And so as a manga artist, also known as mangaka, in order to hit your deadlines, you need to find a way to create content fast. A lot of manga artists do not get enough sleep.
平均すると1時間とか2時間の睡眠になっちゃうんで、あんまりの睡眠になっちゃうんで、あんまり
Some get sick, and the pay is not always great, even when you're successful. Don't believe me? I had a chat with Tony Valente.
Because you have solid backgrounds. I saw that.
You have solid backgrounds.
Thank you, but
You have solid backgrounds.
No, you.
Yeah, no, you.
Creator of Radiant, a successful manga with 2 seasons of anime. And even he'd say the same thing. And then there are other stories of manga artists getting sick. Sometimes you can see them really rushing on your pages on the serialized versions of the manga. They would kind of refine it sometimes at the end for the volume. But with all that pressure, sometimes it can fall ill. Or maybe the anime adaptation or movie makes a lot of dough. Then the creator doesn't see as much of it. Obviously, this is not the same for everybody. It depends on how much pull you have. So if you're looking to become a creator, be prepared for a world that's not as rewarding. You will live in a box, not that much sleep, not that much of a social life, not that much dough. At the very least, in the beginning, that's what it will be. Because of some of these things and probably more personal reasons, some creators take crazy hiatuses. The Gray Man, Hunter x Hunter, the list goes on. You need to think about all these things and find ways to make it work for you, especially if you love it. You need to tell stories. Assuming you have your story and you have your reasons for why you want to make this, you have your morals and principles in touch, in place with what you want to put together, ready to make a story that's interesting, engaging, fun, and all that good stuff. You want to form your treatment, essentially a breakdown of the whole story from start to finish. Or you need a synopsis that tells what the story is about. Bottom line, you need something to use to form some kind of script. You might have several versions, a synopsis that covers the whole series, or maybe just a chapter. You might want to do a one-shot, and a one-shot, for the lack of a better term, is just a pilot in a way. Sometimes before a series is serialized, they publish a one-shot version of it, and then based off of the reception of that one-shot, they decide if they want to publish it and serialize the series full on, just like a pilot episode. Except with TV, sometimes some pilot episodes are literally the episode 1, and then if the studio gives it a green light, they just do episode 2 and go on. Most one-shots are just standalone stories, and so if they do get greenlit, the artist could be assigned an editor, and they'll kind of rework things and change things they felt would make the series better, and then start from scratch. One Piece had a one-shot, was called Romance Dawn. It's very different from the One Piece you know. Naruto had a one-shot, still called Naruto, but there's literally a gun in it. No headbands, just the goggles. In fact, the creator decided to put in the headbands because the goggles were pretty difficult to draw all the time. Bleach had a one-shot, very different as well. Certain beats and narrative aspects of Bleach as you go forward were just kind of squeezed into one for that one-shot. And if you then go on to read or watch Bleach, you can kind of see what parts they used from the one-shot and what parts they probably let go. Bottom line, you should know whether you're creating a one-shot or an ongoing series that has multiple chapters. Once that's over, you create your treatment, develop a synopsis for either a one-shot or your ongoing series. For me, sometimes I like to have several versions of the synopsis, one that covers the whole series with all its chapters telling people what to expect, and then some synopsis that kind of cover just chapters individually. And then if you're working with a one-shot, then you just have to worry about this one standalone chapter. From the synopsis, you form your script with narration and dialogue. Best after you've learned the best practices to do that. From the script, you then form the concept work. This is just the conceptual phase where you're just making everything a lot more visual. You're developing character designs, you're developing environmental designs, the list goes on. These designs are what you're going to be using when you're creating the actual comic pages. That way you're not coming up with stuff on the fly. You're prepared, you know what you're doing, and you're not thinking about multiple things at once. Based off of the script and the concept art, you form your storyboards. Sometimes they're called names. And this is essentially you developing the blueprint thumbnails of how your pages are going to be laid out, how the panels are going to be placed, what panel is huge, what panel is small, why, understanding camera angles, understanding what the 180 rule is, keeping track of what page goes where, whether it be on the left side of the book or the right side of the book if you plan to print it, planning for double page spreads, where the chapter covers are going to be, if it's a book, building tension to make the reader want to flip the page so they just continuously flip pages until they're done. A lot of planning goes into storyboarding. Again, alleviating yourself from having to worry about that stuff while you're sketching and then inking the actual page. Creators have these thumbnails on separate pieces of paper, where you have them as little squares on one piece of paper, going through all of them and even leaving yourself notes of edits that you want to make on the final. It's easier to make all your mistakes on the storyboards versus the actual pages that are sketched and inked. It's a little more final. Usually if you have an editor, depending on who you are, depends on what your editor does. Some editors help you with the narrative, some editors help you with the visual aspects of things, or some editors are just focused on grammatical stuff. Depending on the editor you have, they would have assisted you during all these phases: concept, story, synopsis, especially here with the storyboards. Bakuman is a good anime/manga, creators of Death Note as well. We're going to dive into this in your series in relatively realistic ways. But then you take the storyboards, you take your paper, or if you're working digitally, you find your software, and then you just create more final versions of the storyboards. You usually start with the sketching or penciling. This stage is just laying down the pencil version of the page to allow for more accurate and confident inking. There is a method to the madness of how you place panels, where you want text, how you don't want art too close to the edge of the paper in case it gets cut off if you do print. You don't want important art or text lost at the edges or lost in the gutter of the book. I have several videos that go into more detail on what you should watch out for. But after the pencils, then you ink. Sometimes if you're working with a team, somebody else inks. So maybe you ink partially and then somebody else finishes the inking if you have assistants. Assistants is one of the ways manga artists speed things up. Sometimes they don't even deal directly with the assistants. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they have like a super assistant that deals with the assistants, so they only have to interact with one of the assistants. Again, it depends on how you do it. There are a million processes on how you put this together. Comic books done here in the West usually have a whole team. Somebody's doing the layouts, somebody's doing the penciling, someone's doing the lettering, someone's doing the coloring, someone's doing the inking, someone's doing the writing. It's a whole team. That way it's much easier to put out content. So then you ink. Now, depending on how you pencil, you could have penciled digitally, so you just have to ink digitally. But if you pencil traditionally, using whatever pencil you feel comfortable with, you then ink traditionally. Or you ink traditionally, scan it in, and then inked digitally. When I inked traditionally, I used Sakura Micron inking pens, or I used a G pen, which is the more traditional pen to use when inking. I have videos that go into how to use those tools, as well as other tools, as those aren't the only tools that you use to ink. Sometimes you use a Pentel Pocket ink brush. I find myself using that for sound effects or filling in some black color. Again, now I just work digitally, so I sketch in pencil in Clip Studio Paint and then ink in Clip Studio Paint, which makes life a little easier for me. After that, you either decide whether you're doing screen tone. If you've been digital throughout this process, then you'd be adding the screen tones digitally, or you'd be adding the screen tones traditionally if you were still traditional up to this point. You then scan in, which essentially once you scan it in, it's become digital. I digress. Same goes for coloring. If you're going to be coloring the pages or coloring the panel, or maybe you're working on the cover of the book and you want to color that, you can do that either traditionally, digitally, or mixed media. A lot of comic book artists today, even the ones in Japan, are moving more digital, or at least certain aspects of the production. Once that's done, you do a little cleanup and reviews just to make sure everything is tidy, not too messy. Work with your editor again, make sure everything looks good, no grammatical errors, the list goes on. And then it goes off to publication. Depending on how you want to be published, you could go independent, you could go print on demand, where a book is made when somebody orders it. So you don't have a bunch of books just chilling in your house and then you have to ship it, blah, 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 blah. There are many ways to handle this. There are those who do like, having a bunch of books to ship out once the order comes in. Maybe they crowdfunded with Kickstarter. There are a ton of comics on Kickstarter getting funded and not getting funded as well. Maybe you only want to publish digitally, have it as a webtoon, so you don't have to worry too much about, the technical aspects of the layout and things getting lost in the gutter or things getting lost at the edge of the paper, because you only plan for this to ever be online or digital. But I always recommend to keep track of the edges of the paper and make sure things don't get lost, whether it be text or important art, because you never know, maybe you want to have a printed version someday. It'll make life easier for you. But Saturday AM, once I make a certain amount of pages or a chapter, it usually gets published inside the digital magazine. Saturday AM is our digital shonen magazine, so our shonen content gets published there. Saturday PM is for the seinen. Saturday brunch is for the josei content. Saturday afternoon, Saturday AF, is for our more web-based content that will usually be shonen or shoujo. My series Apple Black is in Saturday AM, and then I have another series, BACASSI, which is a little more mature, and so that's put in our seinen digital magazine, Saturday PM. Links to everything you could possibly need will be in the description. It leads us back to our Quarto book deal, because the book deal allows us to put the books in lots of markets. Popular bookstores, translated to multiple languages, and we did try to have some innovative things that are inspired by what we see from Japan, because we're big fans of the content that comes out of Japan, as well as some of the stuff that we get here in the West with like a Marvel, DC, IDW, Image, the list goes on. All our books are going to have a post-credit scene MCU style. Some of the post-credits will even tease a Saturday multiverse with all of our characters coming together to face a common enemy. The books will have some colored pages. It will be in the more traditional manga book size. We had previous versions of the books before that I know a lot of you guys, thank you by the way, have purchased. But these books will be different. They will have exclusive original content, not just the post-credit scene that I mentioned earlier, but it will have edited, improved, remastered, and remixed art, grammar, the list goes on, to fit your little shop. These are the books that, if they do well, then we start talking about an anime. It allows us some leg room to be able to negotiate those kinds of things. So please support the books. Even if you've gotten the previous versions, you'll be getting something new with this one. Hammer, Oblivion Rouge, Sagami, Titan King, Massively Multiplayer, World of Ghosts. There will be even more manga that we will be publishing. If this works, we'll solidify ourselves here in the West, giving people another option of where you can publish your content. Make your dreams of becoming a manga artist come true. Jay here has been published by USA Today and Oni Press. What you got, Jay?
Yo, my name is Jay Oden, and I am a manga-inspired comic book artist from New Orleans. My series is called Hammer, which is currently being serialized and published in the world's most diverse manga anthology, Saturday AM. And it debuted in issue 82, which feels like forever ago. Hammer is a series about a weird little kid named Stud who has to fight dangers in all of his adventures around the world while turning any part of his body into a hammer. It's pretty cool, has a lot of action in it. I bring my unique style to it. The story is very layered, so I think that if you read it, you will enjoy yourself. So definitely check it out. It's been in pretty much every issue since the beginning of 2021 on our Saturday AM app. Definitely keep an eye out for volume 1, which should be coming out later on this year, June 7th to be exact. It's going to be coming out worldwide thanks to the Quarto and Saturday AM book deal, and I'm super excited for it because, my God, I've been waiting for this entire moment since before I got with Saturday AM. We are the world's most diverse manga anthology, and we have earned everything that we have done, and I'm super excited to be a part of this at the ground floor, and I can't wait to see how everything is going to be impacted by not only my volume, but also every other volume that we're going to be putting out. So I'm super excited.
So please support us, support the movement, get all books if you can, or get the how to draw books if you're just one who's trying to learn how to draw. Appreciate all the support we get. Hopefully all the tips we went through help you. Whether you're creating a manga, comic, webtoon, manhwa, whatever the case may be. You see how ridiculous it is? It's all comics. It's all manga. Really the differences lie in more so culture of how maybe it's produced, or certain little nuances here and there. Essentially, they're all the same. Pictures telling the story. The reason most manga is produced with the reading orientation going from right to left, it's not because that's what makes it manga. It's because it's produced in Japan and the reading orientation there is right to left. So I advise when creating your manga, keep in mind of where it's actually going to be published. If it's going to be published here in the US, then you probably want it to go from left to right instead. If you're creating a webtoon, you probably want it in the scroll format. After all of that and the book is ready to go out, you do promotion. One of the forms of promotion would be endorsements. Sometimes some creators get endorsements from bigger creators to help spread word of mouth, help get some street cred, so when you're placed in some bookstores, you're placed in prominent positions. Valente's Radiant got an endorsement from Yusuke Murata, the artist of One Punch Man in Japan. And so, as you can imagine, it got a little more prominence in the bookstores in Japan. And shout out to Tony Valente and Eisner Award winner Sanford Green, who endorsed our books. After that, obviously, there's a lot of stuff that goes into marketing, promotion. You have your budgets and things like that. Taking advantage of social media and coming up with some creative ways to put the work out there. If not, nobody's going to see it. So hopefully that answered all the questions you may have when it comes to manga and the production of manga, how to make manga explained Please, if you enjoyed it, for the love of Almighty, like the video. Holy Ghost, smash the subscribe button and hit the bell so you stay notified each time I upload absolutely anything. Turn on all notifications. Because based off of the new experience we've gotten from putting these books out there's a lot of good material that I can put out for you guys to help educate y'all if you want. Stay tuned for that. This is it, guys. This is it. Support these versions of the books. In fact, the old versions don't even exist anymore. These are the only Apple Black books out there. These are the only versions of these books that exist. You want an anime, book, video game, all that stuff? This is it. We have a chance here to fully solidify a new Shonen Jump alternative here in the West. So we really hope you support us and support all the books as best as you can. Help spread the word on social media, your friends, the list goes on. And we also make sure to put our best foot forth and make sure it's an enjoyable experience when you do get the books. The pre-orders actually matter and play a role into how the books get spread out into stores and all of that stuff. So links to where you can pre-order, even translated versions of the books, are all in the description. Follow me on all social media. I'm going to be streaming a whole lot more now. In fact, I've already been streaming a lot on Twitch, so if you want to keep track of that, follow me on Twitch. Do a lot of streams where I'm working on future Apple Black pages where we're working on Volume 4. Check out more videos. It's Whyt Manga, and I'm Augie 9000.